few people from the industry can give very, very different opinions on the same subject and come at it from different angles.
Great speakers, some great topics, and I think a lot of things to take away and think about for the future.
I'm fascinated. I think the content has been great so far.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Charlie mentioned, my name is Jan Sammeck. I'm the Director of eCommerce for Deutsche Hospitality, formerly known as Steigenberger Hotels AG or Steigenberger Hotel Group, which includes 3 brands. We have a mid-scale product, which is Intercity Hotel. We have an upscale product, which is, of course, Steigenberger. And then we have a lifestyle product, which is called Jazz in the City. So I believe what I'm going to say today is pretty much applicable to any type of hotel, whether it be a resort, a business hotel, 2-star, 5-star, whatever. What I'm going to talk about today is growing direct bookings in the face of OTA advertising. I know this is a big concern to anyone who's seriously interested in growing direct bookings. And before I joined Steigenberger, I worked with an OTA for quite some time. So I believe I'm somewhat familiar with their tactics, and I also believe that I found a way to go against the massive advertising of OTAs. So what I want you to, from the start, what I want you to take away today, because I want you to learn something, or I hope you can take away something from my presentation, are 2 things basically. One is when you talk about direct bookings and growing direct bookings, beware of budget thinking. And the other is don't try to play the OTA game in online advertising. And while I take you through my little journey here, my presentation, please keep these 2 things in mind because they're relevant to understand the context. So let's get started. How do OTAs engage in online advertising? It's pretty simple. It's basically for any type of e-commerce shop engages in online marketing. There are 2 basic categories, which I termed scattered marketing and targeted marketing. And the main difference between the 2 is that the scattered marketing is sort of the shotgun approach to marketing, and the targeted marketing is more the sniper rifle approach to marketing and getting in targets. So in particular, scattered marketing in its approach, it's very generic. It's basically the principle, I throw some advertisement out there like flypaper and I see what sticks to it. It's television, it's generic SEO, it's display advertising for the most part, and generic SEA, of course. And then targeted marketing more relates to a very narrow or narrower field of customers. It's mostly very specific. Either you target someone who's actively looking for a specific brand or a specific hotel, or you target someone who's already engaged with you in some way, which is email, obviously, or retargeting, where he at least visited your website. So this is the first thing that you'll have to learn about OTA marketing. It's pretty simple, but this categorization is important for developing a direct booking online marketing strategy. So please keep in mind. So we see these 2 categories, and we know, as I saw the last annual report from Priceline, I think they spent 3-point-something billion in performance marketing alone. It's an insane budget, even compared to the biggest hotel companies in the world. This is far more. But the question you have to ask yourself is it really just the budget? And there's another important aspect I would like to bring into play here, which is a fundamental supply asymmetry that any hotel, even the biggest hotel chains, have in comparison to OTAs. What I did here is, I don't know if you can read it, probably not. I did a simple search for the keyword Hotel Barcelona on Google, and it returned, of course, an advertisement from Booking.com saying, oh, we got 2,300 hotels on our website. And by the way, we guarantee you best price, but we all know that that's not true. And then I looked down the search result page and looked for the first hotel company I could find that has a serious number of hotels that would fit the search term Hotel Barcelona, and it was Accor. I think I don't know if it's top 3, at least it's top 5 hotel companies in the world with 53 hotels in Barcelona. So you see, just from the perspective of supply and demand, OTAs simply surpass any type of hotel company. It's a law. And from this, there's a certain conclusion you can take away. Yeah? The thing is, given this supply-demand asymmetry, any type of generic interest, yeah, like Hotel Barcelona or even television ads and what have you, you're at an extreme disadvantage if you engage in that type of marketing compared to OTAs. Because OTAs always have a one-to-many relationship to the customer or to the prospect, because they simply have that much more hotels than any single or any hotel chain can have. So you have a one-to-one or one-to-few demand-supply relationship as compared to one-to-many, which weighs in so much more when it comes to generic advertising. That's why I believe, I know Hilton and some other huge chains engaged in television advertising in the US. I don't think it is as nearly as effective for them as it is for Booking.com or Trivago. It simply cannot be. I don't believe in it because it's a mathematical certainty that the offerings for generic interest for an OTA are so much higher than even for the biggest hotel chains that have thousands of hotels across the world. So 2 things to keep in mind. Supply-demand asymmetry between hotel and OTA, and massive budgets on the side of OTAs. So what's the approach we took at Deutsche Hospitality? We do a lot of things, but the one thing I believe for today is most relevant because it's very easy to apply. It's simply a change of perspective that I will come to in the conclusion of my presentation. What approach do we take to go up against these? We are a small, by any standards compared, a small hotel chain. I think we have 100 plus something in the pipeline. So it's not that huge as compared to the Hiltons or Marriotts of this world. So change this perspective on online marketing budgets and investment. And what do I mean by that? When I started at Steigenberger or Deutsche Hospitality, GMs would come up to me and ask me, Mr. eCommerce, what can you do for us? We give you so much money. Why are we not on #1's position on Google SEA? And if you've internalized the first 2 concepts I just explained to you, it's obvious why we don't do this, because it's economically not viable. Any clicks that we get, I think the destination with the most hotels we have is Frankfurt, where we have 3 Steigenberger hotels. Booking.com has, I don't know, a couple of 100 hotels in Frankfurt. So try to convert out of any click that results from Hotel Frankfurt. You have 3 hotels where you have the chance to convert the user. Booking.com has 300 or 3,000 hotels to convert that user. So you see this disparity makes it impossible to really engage on an economically viable basis for PPC advertising in the generic sense. So what do we do then? And what do I suggest any hotel should focus on first, in particular if you're not that advanced in online marketing? You want to focus on targeted marketing. So anything that is from the world of brand SEA, brand SEO, email, retargeting, and meta search. I know we talked a lot about meta search this day, so I also got my ideas on that. But to some extent, meta search is also something where I say it's a targeted marketing channel. And again, recall, targeted marketing is anything where the user either had contact with your website, by entering his email address to your newsletter database, or by retargeting, or he is actively looking for your brand. In our case, it would be something like Steigenberger Frankfurt on Google or Bing, or even looking for the specific hotel on Trivago to compare prices. Now, the problem that you have with targeted marketing is that due to the limited focus, it's a very narrow and specific targeting of customers, it's difficult to scale to a certain extent. And the main problem is that from a certain point on, you won't be able to bring in revenue through targeted marketing without increasing your costs above a certain level where you say, okay, it's not interesting for me. These figures I put on here, they're purely random. It could be the reverse, but I say, okay, the cost intensity of a certain marketing channel is relevant. Some might also call it CPA, cost per acquisition, or cost per order, CPO. But it's really, the amount of invest you have to undertake in order to generate 1 unit of revenue from that channel. So I assume, let's say, we pay 4% on SEO for any booking, 8 email, 9 SEA, 10 retargeting, 12 affiliate, and 25 meta search, which is, by accident, actually pretty close to reality, but it could be the reverse. So you could also pay 25 to some affiliates. Yeah? It's possible. This is just to explain the idea and to come to my argument of how a change of perspective can help you increase direct bookings. The question is, what is your threshold CPO or CPA or cost intensity level for direct bookings? You have to determine some cutoff point or maximum CPO where you say, I won't go above that because above that it's not interesting for me to bring in that revenue. And one measure in order to determine that maximum CPO could, of course, be OTA commission levels. Actually, that's very typical. Say you pay 18, 20, 25, 30% to an OTA, you would probably say, my direct bookings have to be below that in order for me to find them attractive. But the problem is, if you apply that to each and every channel sort of in a silo, you cut off, say, randomly 20%, you say, Meta is too expensive, forget about it, I won't invest there. You leave money on the table because an online booking is an online booking. And if someone's on a meta search, he's going to book online. That's guaranteed. So if you're not there with your offering, the bookings, Booking.coms, Expedias, and Amomos of this world, they will be, and they will get that booking even if they charge you maybe a lower price than 25% of the revenue, but they will be in the position to acquire that booking. So the question for you is, am I really willing to leave that booking to an OTA just because from a channel perspective, it's 5% above my threshold? And that's why I say the silo thinking doesn't make sense, because OTAs also don't work that way. I'll get to that in a moment. What makes sense is to calculate an average CPO across all marketing channels. So what we do is we throw in all the marketing costs for any hotel into one bucket, basically. And then we see, okay, is the ratio above or below a certain level that we define for the hotel, say 12, 10, 8%, depends on where the hotel is located, what the price range is, etc. And if it is, then we continue investing in these channels, depending on the best ROI in each channel, until we reach that level. And then we stop, or we scale down maybe one or two channels, depending on their performance in seasonality. But by acting this way, and by changing your perspective from a channel point of view to this overall direct booking point of view, you allow yourself to drive direct bookings in a much more effective way than if you focus on channels alone. And the reason for the problem or the issue you have is if you focus on channels alone is that OTAs also don't work that way. OTAs are sometimes willing to make no money on your booking, but they want to get that booking. It's a question of power and a question of long-term market positioning that they take into account. Even for OTAs going for Hotel Berlin, they probably lose money or don't make any money on half of these bookings. But by establishing their brand, by always being on the top position, they manage to also create spillover effects for for other channels like SEO or email or direct access that are not so cost intensive. And my idea is that if you follow this path, you make yourself competitive to OTAs because you're sort of mimicking their tactics, but on a much more efficient level of investment in terms of marketing investment. And there's also one thing I like to add to my little graph here. If you allow yourself to think that way, it's not necessary to think in terms of budget. Actually, I think it's fatal for your direct booking strategy if you think in terms of budgets for online marketing. The thing is, ask yourself a little hypothetical question. Yeah? Say you budgeted 10,000 in OTA commissions for the month of September. And by the 20th of the month, you see, I'm already at 12,000, I'm over budget. Ask yourself, are you going to shut down the OTAs just because the commission level is above the budget? You won't. And the same applies to online marketing. As long as you're below your threshold OTA, you can continue to invest and invest and invest because it's nothing other than a commission for your direct booking that you're there calculating and that you can then compare to your OTA commissions. But the thing is that many hoteliers, or at least the ones I've known so far, they tend to, in particular the old school ones, they tend to think in terms of wherever the name marketing is, there is some, fuzzy return I cannot calculate. It's like posters and prints and brochures. So I have to set a budget for that. Yeah? And that's purely cost perspective. And once the budget is depleted, there's no more money for that. I like to think of online marketing in terms of distribution cost and work that way and manage that way so that you allow yourself the flexibility in really bringing forward direct bookings and your online marketing for your brand and your hotel website. Did we reduce OTA allocations? Maybe, what's meant by allocations? In the sense of just reducing their revenue, or?
Yeah, have OTA commissions gone down? Is that the question?
I mean,
OTAs
number of
rooms going through OTA.
The thing is, that's an interesting question because there's no real answer to that. It's just hypothetical. Because OTAs are also growing in our portfolio. We cannot calculate the share that we take away from them or that they would have made if we weren't investing the way we do. So my personal impression is, yes, we sort of curb the growth of OTAs by acting in that way. But I cannot put a figure behind.
And do you know, because it's fascinated me, the change in approach, what the impact on net RevPAR is, like in terms of bottom line, does being prepared to pay as much as the OTA commission would be?
Well, unfortunately, my CFO doesn't share that number with me, but what I've gotten as a response from the GMs from some of the hotels was that they were actually quite thankful that we were able to increase year-over-year revenue in direct by 30 or 50, some hotels even up to 80%. Yeah? It was quite impressive for some. We have a resort hotel where we make more revenue direct with our website than with booking.com. So the response has been quite positive from the GMs, and they also don't complain about rising OTA commissions as much. So that's at least to me an indicator.
Any questions from the room? No, everyone's taking a slide. Maybe time for one more. Which tactics, perhaps, had the best ROI for you? Sounds like it's been very much meta search driven. Maybe which meta channels work best?
Well, it's actually there's a simple answer to that. If I would have to rank in terms of cost efficiency, SEO is first, but I unfortunately, I'm convinced that this will go down in the next years. Then is paid search advertising on brand, on Google and Bing, and then there's meta search in terms of cost efficiency. And then the other channels follow. They're not as efficient and they're not able to scale as much as these search channels are.
Great. Well, Jan, thank you so much for sharing that different perspective.